So tell us, what did you do?
I am currently focusing on content writing, content creation. At the moment, I am finishing up my book that's coming out in Q1 next year. I am also focusing on expanding my audience and making sure that I have a community to give value to.
Okay. So the startups are, very close to my heart. So I want to ask, what do you think about sweat equity? Because this is so popular now, right? So we see that everywhere. Come help me build this as a, be the CTO, be the only guy who's actually coding, be the only guy in general from technical perspective. I'll give you some equity. What's your take on that?
That's interesting because I've had a few people come and approach me recently about joining their new idea. I've got a CEO who has come to me. He's created his first bootstrapped out of ChatGPT and something he's created from that, and now he's trying to mature it to get an investor.
Yeah.
So I've been seeing that a lot lately. It depends on your situation. If you've got the money and the time to plow into that, then it's something that could be considered.
Okay.
It definitely depends on your own situation.
Yeah. I have 2 teams in Ukraine, and I have in South Africa and as well in India, which is a fully distributed remote setup, and the cultural differences, they really clash when it comes to trying to create collaboration and communication and collaboration, not communication and competition. But it's so hard when you have people so close in Ukraine, which is a couple of people so close in India and South Africa. They see themselves as a team, and they see other teams on the remote basis almost like as a competition. Like, we need to do better than those teams. Did you ever had situation like this, and how do you actually get that spirit together?
The most extreme example I've had is when I worked with Polish and Brazilians. They have a very specific mentality where their culture is to be reserved, and to not communicate and not to share. They often are quite reserved individuals, and it's very interesting that both those particular locations are very similar culturally. Even though they are very diverse on the face of it. And it becomes a very difficult process of getting them to become part of the team. So I've seen it on the flip side where they aren't competitive enough and they aren't working enough with the team.
Okay. And the insights of how you actually would try to solve this. Like, how do you get the Polish team and the Brazilian team come together and be as one big family instead of competing?
Well, I don't like the charged word of family. Become a team.
Become a team. Okay.
Yeah.
Become
so
close
to have that happen, you have to be inclusive. You have to encourage them. You have to involve them in the conversation instead of expecting them to become part of the conversation. You have to bring them explicitly into the conversation, and then they become much more open to give their values and their opinions. But it's much more about proactiveness. You have to be proactive with those individuals. They become willing to share their ideas.
So what's the book about, Tom?
The book is about the different levels of CTOs, roughly 7 levels of CTO, working from being one of the first hires as a startup to being part of a larger enterprise, and how they work in that environment. They're much more of a CIO in that situation, but it's still technically a CTO. So the book ranges from that beginning to the top end of the.
So in effect, it gives you a picture, if you would choose to become a CTO, what levels you actually will go through.
It's meant to be a rough guidebook of how to navigate each one of those different.
So I resonate with being a CTO for a startup. I had 2 startups, so I can't imagine that picture. So what would be the biggest challenge in your mind to actually going through those levels? Let's say I'm level 1, I want to go level 2. Is it I need to learn on myself? Is it about a book? Maybe it's about mentoring?
So the challenges are probably the transitions between the levels. And each level requires a different skill set. So the first level requires you to be much more technical. Then as you go up, you become more and more hands-on, more oriented. So each level requires you to change your perspective and change the way that you handle each situation. And then how to apply strategies to help get the most out of the team.
So in a way, what you're saying is like anything you learned at the level 1, it's like I'm not going to apply that one at the level 2. It stacks up. Okay.
Because say you're on level 7, you still need previous 6 levels to know how to transition, how to navigate those environments. Because even at a large enterprise, and the teams ranging of like 20, maybe plus, you still need to know how to navigate those interactions with the teams, so that you know how to talk to them and how to technically strategize the team and how to steer them through potential difficult patches.
What is a toxic culture?
A toxic culture is where things become unaware to certain levels of management, and people are allowed to run riot.
Okay.
A couple of my previous roles, there have been, as you say, hierarchy where managers are managers, and those managers end up in between. The middle managers can take a narrative and weave a certain story about an employee, and that becomes a problem because the upper manager doesn't know the true story of the individual,
Right.
for instance, and then that manager is taking control of that narrative.
Yep.
And that employee may be doing a really good job, but there may be a personality.
Yeah.
And then that manager is like, I'm gonna make you look really bad.
Hey, Joel.
I mean, like,
So let us know what you do, Joel.
so like I'm a CTO coach.
Yep.
Which means I coach a startup and scale up CTOs.
Okay.
And helping grow with their business.
Yep. So what's your ideal mentee profile?
So as I said, so for me, it's a CTO at a startup.
A startup state. How would you define a startup CTO? Is it about headcount of the management, or like an organization size, or maybe a tech?
So generally, there's two things that I talk about that. So one is the size. Most of the people I coach have technology teams between about 5 and about 50.
Okay.
Some of them go up to 200, 300, 400, but mostly it's in that small range.
Okay.
And mostly they have ambitious plans to grow.
Yeah.
And they've either been through a period of growth, they're planning to go through a period of growth.
How much you charge and stuff?
It really depends, because what I'll do generally when I talk to the CTO is we'll have an hour's conversation.
Yeah.
And in that, I'll get to understand much better the challenges they're facing, the time scale they have to make change, and how much time they're prepared to commit to the challenge. And they will get a sense of what would it be like to work this long, how valuable might that be, and do they feel comfortable sharing in some of the areas they feel quite vulnerable about. And through that, then I'll be able to recommend, here's a program of coaching that I think will work for you.
Okay.
And so it depends on the program.
Hey, how's that? Do you want to tell us what you do?
Yeah, so right now I am doing some interim fractional roles.
Okay.
I'm working with Open University.
Yep.
As head of technology. I'm doing some coaching with some VPs and CTOs at startups.
I want to become your mentee.
Yeah.
How would I get to contact you, and what challenges you actually but helping people to solve?
So you can reach out to me directly.
Yeah.
And I am working through CTO Coach as well. So you can there's a landing page on there. You can get contact, and then Andy or
CTO Craft.
as in CTO Craft. Yeah. So they've got a program called coaching program.
Yeah.
And then they'll refer you to their coaching members.
Yeah.
So that's another kind of inbound. So that's how you kind of get in contact. I think for me, I think where I can kind of really help best is quite hands-on, like what's the challenge you're trying to solve. Let's be a rubber ducky. We can do some pairing.
Yeah.
And specifically around what I think I can bring to kind of coaches and mentees is really around transitioning. So kind of adding like a new layer of management for the first time. Like maybe you're a founder and you're managing engineers directly, but you need to hire a manager. You need to hire a head of engineering.
Okay.
What does that look like? You need to start thinking about professional development. And career growth, and how do you do promotions and pay raises and things like that. I think that trying to add that layer of professionalism and try to put that structure in place, I think it's what I've done a lot of in the past. I think where I can really help those kind of things. So like for those companies which are starting to grow and their structure is not necessarily fit for the growth which they have gone through or about to go through.